Hi YouTubers, friends and family, welcome back. I feel like it's been a little while in between videos. I've been very busy trying to get a lot of work done before the Minnesota winters are upon us. My overall approach to the van conversion has been to do anything external first and then focus on internal. There's a lot of interdependencies and decisions, and I'll talk about that in another video, but I'm largely done with most of the external work that needs to happen on the van before the Minnesota snow flies. So the last two windows that I put in are C.R. Lawrence, and they're called universal windows. That is, they can fit any van. So it's a little bit of a different install than some of the other windows that were specifically made for the model van that I have. So let's take a look and let's see how that went. Because these bunk windows are custom, they don't fit to the inside of your van in one of the existing cutouts. We have to make our own template. So we're gonna do that just using a magic marker and a piece of cardboard. Okay, we're gonna trace out our form. That's the first thing that we're gonna start with so we can cut this out and then transform it into the inside of the van. I've taped this bracket together, and the thing that's interesting about these brackets, you can see that it's curved, and that is intentional, and I've read some of the reviews on these windows. People say that the curved bracket actually sort of bends their van, but you don't want the frame this way. You do not want to trace on this inside. This outside panel is what we're tracing. So I'm just going to hold this in place. I'm going to use my knee, and I'm just going to trace around the inside. All right, and now we're going to cut that out, and then we'll be able to trace around this on the inside of the van. So now I'm just checking the fit of the cardboard cutout that I made. I've got it inserted into the window frame, and I can see that it fits nicely. So our next step will be to transfer this pattern to the inside of the van. Let's do it. Okay, so we have our cardboard cutout, and there are a few more things to think through with this window installation. We know it can go in this back panel. If you're building your own van, one of the other things that you have to think about is you've got a sliding door on the side of the van, and that comes back. And if you have a tilt-out window, you don't want that door to clip your window. So you have to think about that. The other thing is the mounting brackets for this window are only as thick as the van wall. So I'm gonna have to cut out this framework no matter where I put it. I'm gonna need room to install the bracket around the window. So, you know, that's another factor. I can't put it right up here because it's gonna be hitting this. So I know that I have to put it lower than this lip edge by the width of the frame. You know, so that's another consideration. My only other consideration is, you know, do I want it more forward, and I can only go so far forward because I don't want it to hit the sliding door, or do I want it more back or down? So those are some of the other considerations. You know, it's a little bit more involved this time. The last ones, you can just follow this and, you know, fit your window right into the existing frame. But these are universal, so you have to think a little bit more and consider some of the ramifications about where you put it. Okay, before we put the window in, we're going to pre-drill the holes. Just to do a quick zoom in here, this is the window, and there's a little trough here, and that actually is where the screws go. They don't go on this upper edge, they go on this edge. So when we seat our frame in here, we're going to be drilling a hole into that trough, straight down. So that's our next step. One of the first things that we have to do before we can put this window in is cut out these reinforced bars. So I'm just going to cut them off up at the top. They are glued on. When I did the other one, I just used a screwdriver and kind of worked the glue out. It's just, you know, glue. But I'm going to use my cut-off tool, and we're just going to get started. I'm going to cut it off up above where the window will go in. And that's it. I'm just going to get started. I'm just using a flat edge screwdriver, just running it across the back, and that seems to break up the glue that's back here. At least that worked with the last one that I did. If I can get underneath the glue itself, it just comes away from the van. There's probably some other way, maybe with a heat gun or something, but this was pretty easy just using the screwdriver. But what you have to watch out for is this does mar the outside of the van. So if your window is going to go down to here, you want to be very careful anywhere down below that so that you're not leaving marks on the outside of the van. But even just a little bit of the work that I'm doing, you know, I've been inserting the screwdriver in here to just kind of pry it away a little bit. That is leaving marks on the outside of the van. So be careful when you're working on this. If we get the angle just right, you can see some of the marks up in here, you know, where I was working on that. They don't go down, you know, to where I'm not going to have the window, but that's what I'm mentioning is you can see some of those wavering marks in there. So make sure that you only press in the area that you're cutting out. Otherwise, you'll damage the outside of your van. There we go. All right. I'm just removing the caulking now, especially in the areas that I'm going to retain. I don't care about up in here so much, but I'm definitely moving it out of the way of where my jigsaw is going to cut because I don't want anything to impede that. And then I'm just removing it in the other areas where the window won't extend down to. There we go. Comes off really easy. I'm just using a razor blade. Alright, so the next thing is we're going to double check our measurements on this window. We're going to tape it out, draw it out, tape it out, and then we'll cut our hole. It's going to look great. Next step, we tape out the pattern. Okay, taping all done. I've got the pattern of the window all taped out. I've taped up some of these cracks here so the metal shards don't go down there as usual. And I've also got some plastic up just to protect those lower panel areas of the van so we don't get a bunch of metal shards down in there too. So we are all set. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that the next step is to cut a starter hole. Okay, I'm about ready to cut. I'm just doing a sizing on the frame one more time. And what's interesting about these windows, and I did see one video, is that they're bowed out. And that is the gap, and it's pretty significant. So what I've heard people say is when they put the windows in, their outside of their van bends. So I hope, you know, this is the way the frame is. It's not a defect. And so I hope that my van can bend in to meet that much. That there's that much flexibility in the van wall to meet the frame. Okay, we are all ready. The next step will be to drill a hole so I can fit my jigsaw blade through and we'll start cutting. If you're actually going to do your own van conversion, I would recommend that you buy rolls and rolls of this tape. I think I bought 12 rolls when I started, and I haven't even gotten to the point of putting it on the ground to lay out my, you know, tape out my layout yet. I'm just using it for everything else. So definitely invest in a bunch of rolls of painter's tape. Houston, we have another hole in the van. Okay, you know the routine. Houston, we have our last and I think our final hole in the van. Large hole. There might be some other small ones that we make. Well, I just did a dry fit. I wasn't expecting the window to fit in perfectly the first time, but it did. So what I'm going to do now is just smooth out some of the edges, prime them, and we'll put the inner frame on. So, wow, I think maybe I'm getting better at this. I don't know, or I got lucky. One lucky girl. Alrighty, I think I am going to vacuum up the mess before we put in the windows and tighten in the frame. Okay, both of the rear bunk windows are installed. Loving it. They're both crank outs, so we can get some nice cross-through ventilation in the van once we're out on the road. Looking forward to it.